folks. Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Berto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Listen, folks, the DOJ report is out. The DOJ report is out. And guess what? It's exactly as we all knew. It's exactly as we all knew that El Señor Trump is, as it turns out, there was no kind of a quid pro quo or any kind like that on the FBI's part. So don't buy into all that crap that you're hearing that somehow, some way, Donald Trump, somehow, that the FBI was out to get him. That was never the case. That is not the case. But here's the funny thing about it. In as much as his department has come out to state categorically that that they had no ulterior motives in investigating both before and after, he's still coming out to tell people that somehow they found all these issues. All these issues were found with the FBI report. There were regular, standard mishaps at the FBI, but nothing was done for political purposes. So please, Donald Trump immediately thereafter decided that he was going to go on air. He went on air and he started telling people there were all these big things found about the DOJ report. There was nothing found. But I am not spending my time on the DOJ report. I'm not spending my time on impeachment. I'm spending my time doing important stuff. But beforehand, I want to play a few things before we get into the show. As we bring people on, folks, I do want to remind all of you to please be sure to share these programs. Today we have several millennials, including a producer that I interviewed at the Bridge Alliance. I want you to listen to these aspirational folk, these people that really are the folks that we should be fighting for. These are the people that are out there making a difference. So I want you to stick around and listen to that. But before that, I have a few little trinkets that I want to play for you to bring you up into speed to some issues. Okay. First of all, I want to play a Chuck Todd. I was very impressed with Chuck Todd yesterday. Well, actually, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday that he interviewed El Señor. Who was it that he interviewed? Ted Cruz. And that interview that he did with Ted Cruz was very impressive to me. And the reason why it was impressive is that finally, this man went ahead and he got Ted Cruz frazzled. And in the process, I think it shows us quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just shut up, and I want you guys to see how this stuff is supposed to be done, and then we'll talk about it real quickly on the other side before we get to the millennials. There are two other videos I want to show you before we get to the millennials, but here we go. Check this out.
There's no crime. And you know, he's right. There is no crime.
No, he was talking about
yesterday.
He was talking about the president's lawyer, not about the president, but go ahead.
Don't
take him out of context on that.
Let's talk about yesterday. You're right. Yesterday, House Democrats put out a 55-page report. They called it a scholarly report that purports to say you don't have to prove a crime. You don't have to prove a law was violated to impeach a president. That's garbage. What nonsense.
Well, wait a minute. That's exactly... Senator,
hold on. Let me finish my point real quickly, Chuck.
That is exactly why the impeachment was written into the Constitution. That's exactly why the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors is in there, because they did it before they even wrote our laws, sir. Do you believe Ukraine meddled in the American election in 2016?
I do, and I think there's considerable evidence.
You do? You do?
Yes, and Chuck, let me say.
This is, Senator, this sort of strikes me as odd, because you went through a primary campaign with this president. He launched a birtherism campaign against you. He went after your faith. He threatened to, quote, spill the beans about your wife about something. He pushed published a National Enquirer story, which we now know he had a real relationship
Chuck,
with the editors
you're
of the National
dragging
Enquirer.
up all that garbage.
Senator,
that's very kind
is
of
it
you.
not? Let me ask you this: is it not possible that this president is capable of creating a false narrative about somebody in order to help him politically?
Except that's not what happened. The president released the transcript of the phone call. You can read what was said on the phone call.
Yeah, and the Biden.
Let me point out again.
And you yourself thought the Biden part was troubling.
The sitting ambassador from Ukraine wrote an op-ed blasting Donald Trump during the election season.
Do you know why he did that?
That is unusual.
What did Donald Trump as a candidate say about Ukraine and Crimea during the election that might have inspired the ambassador?
So you're saying they had disagreements with Donald Trump and they wanted Hillary Clinton to get elected.
Okay, I wrote an
Ukrainian parliamentarian.
That is the difference. What you're saying is you're saying a pickpocket, which essentially is a Hill op-ed, compared to Bernie Madoff and Vladimir Putin. You're trying to make them both seem equal. I don't understand that.
Now that is the way it's done. Normally Chuck Todd would give these guys a pass and somehow they get away with it. He didn't this time. Kudos to El Señor. Greetings, Reynard Blake. Welcome aboard from Lansing, Michigan. Welcome aboard, my friend. Okay, the other one that I want to show you is another person confronting all the crap coming from the right. And this one is Rahm Emanuel. I'm not a fan of Rahm Emanuel at all, okay? But let's give kudos where kudos is due. And in this case, kudos is due to Rahm Emanuel because what he's doing, or what he said he's doing, I think was the right thing here. So let's go ahead and play that one and we'll move on from there.
To Rahm's point about normalizing impeachment, what we have is this impeachment process has been driven in large part due to the Democrats' hatred of Donald Trump. It lowers the standard for impeachment, which is a very dangerous process.
First of all, you can have my time back. Name me 5 presidents that ever asked a foreign government to come in here and basically do research on a political rival. Name 5. Name all 5. It's never happened. This is a totally different situation. Right. You're inviting a foreign power, and it goes to the very words of the 3 constitutional lawyers and the 500 who signed the letter, who's outlined the fact that you've set up an establishment where a president of the United States versus 2 things here. One, he had said that a foreign power can get themselves involved in an American election. He said it in China, he said it about Russia, and he said it about Ukraine. Second thing that I think is really crazy here, he's saying my personal lawyer could testify, but the Secretary of State, who's a confirmed position, the Attorney General, who's a confirmed position, the Secretary of Energy, who's a confirmed position, cannot testify. That is an inversion of the way the process is.
And it's evidence of obstruction of confidence. 3 key points on that. In this phone call, the July 25th phone call, Zelensky and Trump both have said they didn't feel any pressure there. Zelensky himself did not know that aid was being withheld. And third, and most important point, the aid was released without conditions. So that is the key.
The aid was released because the story got broke.
The aid was released because the story got broke. In other words, don't make it look like somehow Donald Trump did the right thing. He didn't do the right thing. What really occurred is that he got caught. And that's what I wrote in a correspondent blog for that piece when I wrote it yesterday. I think it went viral on Daily Kos and a couple other places. Now, here is the deal. Like I said, I just want to kind of bring that misinformation machine show you what it's like. Another kudos to El Señor Chuck Todd now. This one here is about 3 or so minutes, and this one talks about, he did an excellent piece on McCarthyism. For those of you who are too young to know that or don't remember reading it in history, he did a complete thing. I want you to take a listen to this because it teaches us something and it gives us an understanding of what the Republicans are attempting to do. Here we go.
Tonight I'm obsessed with a term I've been hearing a lot, one that's been bandied about without much intellectual honesty or care.
Gruesome display of modern-day McCarthyism. The shoes of Joe McCarthy. Full Joe McCarthy. McCarthyism in reverse.
Modern-day Joe McCarthy.
McCarthyism is an enduring legacy of Republican Senator Joe McCarthy of Wisconsin. He led a systematic campaign in the early 50s accusing people of being communist sympathizers, dragging them in front of cameras for unethical hearings that were merely political spectacles, accusing them of treason without a shred of real evidence, building up lists without anything on them. McCarthy's purported goal was to root out communism in American society. What it accomplished instead was creating a national climate of fear. Joe McCarthy may be dead, but his tactics are surely not, like the attempts to silence the opposition by calling them unpatriotic.
The rats who are undermining the foundation of our nation. take a shovel and dig out and destroy those rats.
Adam Schiff, he's a lowlife. Frankly, they should look at him for treason.
Parade of accusations levied entirely in the absence of fact.
Even if there are only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
The Prime Minister of Ukraine, the Interior Minister, the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, the head of the Ukrainian Anti-Corruption League, all meddled in the election on social media and otherwise.
The efforts to discredit journalists by berating them publicly.
Tomorrow is a symbol, the leader, and the cleverest of the jackal pack, which is always found at the throat of anyone who dares to expose individual communists and traitors.
The media, the dishonesty, the total deceit and deception makes them certainly partially the opposition party.
Some believe McCarthyism was about the Soviet Union and communists, external threats. But it wasn't. It was about the damage inflict upon itself. When we lose sight of our past and our principles, when we succumb to our basest instincts, when we favor fear over fact. McCarthyism wasn't about communism, it was about power. It wasn't about exposing threats, it was about imposing fear. It wasn't about them, it was about us. And now here we are again, confronting the very same machinations designed to confuse, obscure, and antagonize. It's wrong, and we all need to say so. After all, have we no sense of decency?
I think that piece was so very well done by Chuck Todd. And I think he and his staff needs to be commended for what he did on that one. Okay, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and introduce the show for today. We have a great show for today. So the title of the show today is These Young People and Millennials Give Me Hope. A few weeks ago, I attended the Bridge Alliance conference in Washington, D.C. and spoke to several very impressive millennials and young people, including one young lady that was still in high school. I interviewed some very talented millennials, young people who are the new activists. I found it refreshing that they were all positive about the future and intended to do positive things. We had people from folks who just traveled to Africa to do positive things, to people just working within their community to do positive things. So again, I think I interviewed about 20-something people there. And of them, I think about 7 of them were millennials, a good percentage that I wanted to get in there. And I can tell you, these are some impressive folks. So without further ado, by the way, the Bridge Alliance is a very good organization that tries to get people from all ideologies speaking. They don't have a specific ideology. They just try to get people talking to each other so that we can actually move the bar forward, move things forward. And they do a very, very good job at it. So if you want, go ahead and check it out. I think it's at bridgealliance.us. Check them out. Just do a Google search on Bridge Alliance and check the organization out. Okay, anyhow, let's go ahead and get started with the program. Like I said, these are some impressive folk. I'm going to start with our Shia Mehta. She is a young woman who is in high school. You will not have a clue that she is. So let's go ahead and start that off. Welcome to Politics on Right. I'm Egberto Willies. Let me tell you, I come to the Bridge Alliance conference every year. This is likely the best conference from a representation from the youth to ethnicity to gender. It's been wonderful. What is most impressive is the amount of young people here who know exactly what's going on and who are going into the community to do what needs to be done. And I tell you, I heard this young lady speak and I sat at my table and I said, I've got to get her on. Arshia Mehta, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you so much. How are you?
Great. I understand. Could it be possible that you're still in high school?
I am still in high school. I'm 17 years old.
You shocked the holy you-know-what out of me when I heard the comment that you made about your table. First of all, tell me, what brought you to this conference?
Sure. So I'm the founder of an organization called Youthivism. Our goal is to increase youth involvement in politics and promote discourse across party lines. We do so through providing nonpartisan civics curriculum for teachers in our district and for teachers pretty much across the country, because we really think that it's important to give the youth a good platform, a nonpartisan platform for which they can branch off of. And so we've been working pretty closely with Jeremy actually for the past few months, and of course he's a part of the Bridge Alliance, so he referred us to this conference.
Now, how long ago have you personally been involved with these types of organizations? Because 17 years old, I'm trying to remember when I was 17. It's a long time ago. If I did that sort of thing. And in as much as I was very politically active and otherwise, I don't think I would have come to one of these conferences.
You know, it's really just going back to my roots. I mean, I've been doing speech and debate since forever. And so really, like 8th grade, I started speech and debate full swing, and I realized that there was so much more to the world than what I was being taught. I mean, in my classrooms, like I'm from California, the Bay Area, and we're really only taught like left-leaning ideologies and like government classes, history classes, and I think that it's important that students are given, you know, all sides of an issue, especially in something as crucial and divisive as politics. And so that's kind of prompted my interest, and I founded Youthivism around a year and a half ago, and it's really been a journey.
Well, excellent. Now, I noticed that you mentioned left ideas, right ideas, and other ideas. I am starting to think that the youth know better than us in this regards. I think you guys are, and I'm going to use a term that I don't like to use because a lot of people don't understand it, but you guys are centralizing on what really ails America. In other words, these aren't left issues or right issues.
Absolutely.
These are issues that says, you are going to be able to afford going to school.
Yeah.
You are going to be able to, after school, not be in debt forever. All those issues are not left or right. They're issues.
Yeah, no.
So tell me a little bit how you feel about those.
No, I completely agree. I think that we've gotten to a point in our country where we're so politically gridlocked, not only on Capitol Hill, but in terms of our voting population, that we're not electing people who can actually work with other people.
Right.
And I think that that's just so necessary, and that's why I'm so passionate about civics education, because not only are we creating a next generation of future legislators and future politicians who are going to be willing to work with other people and willing to reach across the aisle and listen to other points of view, but more importantly, we're creating a body of people who are willing to vote, people willing to do work into office. And I think that that's really the movement that this youth stands for.
Well, I'm going to tell you from the old person points of view now, and I want you to tell me otherwise. I think a lot of this is by design. I think we are fearful of a body politic now that is really becoming aware that it's about everybody and not about some.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
No, absolutely. I think that, you know, like I have really unique experiences, just I'm sure you do, in terms of my identity. Like being a woman of color in this country has really taught me to pave my own path and taught me certain unique experiences that I can only attribute to my identity. I think I've always known from a very young age that I need to pave a path for myself. And so that drive towards creating a future that's inclusive of gender, inclusive of race, inclusive of income, that's something that this youth like really stands for. And I think the way that you accomplish that is by giving everyone access to the same platform, whether it be a civics education platform, whether it be the income to go to college. And we stand for those policies and platforms. That's what we're so passionate about.
And I think that is why the future looks better if we can give it a chance to grow.
Absolutely.
But we have to give it a chance to grow.
Yeah.
We can't stifle it now. Arshia Mehta, it's been my pleasure to have you on
You too.
Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much.
Now, Arshia, would you believe she is a high schooler? That woman with that method of thinking, with that thinking process, is in high school. Now you see why we were so impressed with her from the time she stood up in that ballroom and just had her say. The other person we have is Rebecca Trout. She is an activist and she's been all over the world doing her activism. Check her out. Rebecca Trout.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great meeting you here at the Bridge Alliance.
Well, you know, I want to tell the audience an interesting thing because we got into the conference and the conference gave us the first question. One of the first questions was ask the other person exactly who they are. And you gave me an answer, and I want you to repeat sort of the answer that you gave me. Who are you?
Sure. I am an extremely lucky individual, and I feel a calling to use my place of privilege to make a difference in this world, and to bring some of that privilege and give it away in pieces to parts of the population that are still receiving and experiencing injustices.
Yeah, the way you explained it earlier, though, I don't know if you saw the expression on my face, because, we weren't talking about those kinds of issues or anything like that. It just kind of flowed out of your voice, like, oh, I have to do, it was like, I have to do this, I have to do that. And I think there's a certain amount of maturity to understand that really that's not a giveaway, but that is a bringing up of people, and that's what I could get in the expression of what you were talking about, which I think is very important.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's really incumbent upon us as individuals to use our place in society, our unique skills, and to bring those together and to lift everyone up.
Right. To show that this is sort of intrinsic to you. I mean, tell us a little bit about what you did overseas, where you went, that sort of thing, because I found that most impressive there. Most people don't get a chance to do that. Most people don't do that.
Yeah, I was really lucky and had the opportunity to join the Peace Corps, and I served in Botswana, where our primary cause was dealing with the HIV/AIDS epidemic over there. So I helped to capacity build local government's response to it, and also helped to build a youth center in my village.
But I mean, other than that, I think you also learned the language.
I did.
I mean, I'm sitting down there and I'm like, this woman just get out of college and she decided to go to Botswana and learn a completely different language. What kind of thing brought that into you?
Sure. Well, my now husband and I were in the nonprofit world in DC, and we loved what we were doing, but we felt like we were on this conveyor belt of life, as we like to call it at that time, and we really wanted to step outside of our comfort zone and to give back to the world in a more global sense than what we were doing before, life took its hold of you, and marriage and kids and all that stuff. So we were lucky enough to be able to kind of quit it all and join the Peace Corps together. And
so you did all of that together?
Yes, we did.
That's great.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah. Now you are with the National Civic League. Exactly what does the National Civic League do?
Yeah, so the National Civic League has been around since 1849, and we are focused on advancing civic engagement in local governments and communities. And so what we mean by that is encouraging local governments to really involve people in problem solving and in decision making.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you this sort of a complex question. What ails America? You're a millennial, okay? I've always said, it's all up to you guys now. What ails America? What do we need to do going forward?
I'm not speaking for my organization, but just speaking for myself.
That's what I want.
I think that if I had to pick one issue, it's really division caused by inequality in my mind. And I think that can be broad to include economic inequality, racial inequality, sexual inequality. And once we start bridging that gap, if you will, once we start getting closer to one another, I think you'll start seeing some of the problems in our society going away.
Now, do you feel, there are some people right now that feel these problems are so perverse, it's just so vast that they just throw their hands up. What do you tell somebody who that's what they believe?
I mean, I think I would tell that person that I've been there.
Explain.
I think, especially for a lot of us, that right after the 2016 election, we were at a loss. We felt like this country was extremely divided, and that there were too many, even today when we were talking at our table and we were coming up with challenges that needed to be fixed in the next 40 years, it was everything. It was the economy, it was housing, it was race relations, and that can be really overwhelming. And to people who do this work, most of us have pretty big hearts and can be a little sensitive. And so I think the first thing I would say is that I've been there, and that we all have that sort of advocate fatigue at times. And then the next thing I'd say is that, but that doesn't matter. You have to keep doing the small things day in and day out. You have to keep leaning on each other, creating the alliances that we're seeing here at the Bridge Alliance, and making sure that we're not doing this work alone in silos, and that when we come together and we can all tackle those issues one by one, it's going to slowly become a domino effect, and we're going to start seeing real change.
Now, you were very active on the table. You had a lot of opinions on the table, which is, I think it's a good thing, and I think we need to get a lot more opinions from to put it bluntly, from younger people. I mean, a lot of times we've come to these conferences and they've been dominated by baby boomers and maybe the older Gen Xers. And one of the things that I appreciate out of this conference is I got some of the most enlightening interviews that I've been doing, and some of the most the most enlightening comments that I've heard from people who stood up and spoke came from a lot of our millennials. I think many may have the millennials wrong as far as not being or involved as they should. So why don't you kind of help me out there?
Sure. I think you're touching on my soapbox a little bit. I think that millennials get a little bit of bad rap. You have to keep in mind that income hasn't risen, that college debt is huge, that work hours are going up. And so we came into the workforce during the Great Recession and all of that, and there have been a lot of challenges. Housing prices, all of that keep escalating, cost of living escalating, but we're not seeing wages going up.
Right.
So I think millennials have a lot of challenges that I think baby boomers don't always give us credit for dealing with. And that two, we engage in a different way than is typical.
Tell me about that.
Well, I don't think that I'm telling you anything new, that millennials prefer to engage online as opposed to in person. Now, I do think that there is some merit in that, and that you sometimes need to show up to a physical space like this to share ideas and make time and room for that. But with economic challenges and things like that, that's not always the case. So we need to find new ways to engage people, whether that's social media, whether that's electronic town halls. We have to find a way that makes it easier, not just for millennials. Everyone's busy.
Right.
So we need to find ways that we engage people in places that they live and the places that they already are, so it's not one more thing that you have to add to their to-do list.
And I think that's important. Now, as far as what you expect to get out of the Bridge Alliance, what are you going to take back with you, and will you be back?
Sure. So this was my first time. I was not well acquainted with the Bridge Alliance, and so I think I'm going to return feeling a little bit refreshed, knowing that there are this many organizations and this many
90 so far.
That's great, and knowing that there are this many people that are willing to take time out of their days to come and talk about these pressing issues. I think I'm going to take back some contacts, such as yourself, of people that, when I'm coming up against a problem or when my organization is trying to solve the next big issue, that we won't be doing it alone anymore. We'll be using these contacts made here today and reaching out more.
Well, I can tell you that the thing about a place like the Bridge Alliance, it's not about top down. As you notice in that room, it was about everybody participating and people coming up with new ideas. People not only coming up with new ideas, but integrating ideas, and that's what I found useful. Like I told another person that I interviewed, I come here also like you come here to be refreshed, to learn, and to also try to impart on people my own ideas as I absorb theirs, because I think that is so important. And I can tell you one thing, I've learned a lot from you, Rebecca Trout.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so kindly for being a part of the Bridge Alliance.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great meeting you.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to try to move a little quicker because we have like 3 more. Kevin Hurtado. I need you to listen to Kevin Hurtado. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. As we all know, one of the issues now is getting young voters to vote. One of the most important issues are things like student debt forgiveness, the price of tuition, work immediately after college. There's so many issues that affect the youth right now. In fact, I have a tendency to say that those older Gen Xers and those baby boomers, we have gotten ours. Isn't it time for millennials and the other generations, the younger generations, to get what's theirs? Well, luckily we have organizations that are taking care of that. And today I'm with El Señor Kevin Hurtado. Kevin, welcome to Politics Done Right.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Look, Kevin, you are with what organization?
The Andrew Goodman Foundation.
And tell me a little bit about what does the Andrew Goodman Foundation do?
Yes, so we are named after Andrew Goodman, who's a civil rights icon. So in the 1960s, he went to Mississippi to register African Americans to vote. And he was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan on his first day.
Right.
He was a college student, so what we do is, preserving his legacy, we work with colleges and universities to get students registered to vote. And actually our president is his younger brother.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's great.
So right now we work with 59 colleges and universities, and we're in 25 states in Washington, D.C.
Okay, and how are you finding that the students in these universities are receptive to voting, or you find them apathetic, and if you're finding them apathetic, what are you doing to solve that problem?
So we've seen several things. So we've seen that students are really engaged around issues. So when you're talking about voting and you connect it to climate change, to student debt, to, for example, anything that would affect a young person, the connection does make them more interested in voting. And we also have found that we're seeing more and more students get involved. So during the 2018 midterm elections, we actually saw record-breaking youth turnout.
Right.
It was the most youth turnout that we've seen in the midterm, like in history.
So I want to ask you to do some analysis for me here, because I think you're telling me something that may confound some people. Many think that the ascent of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the aggregate would be a negative. But what I'm hearing from you is that given the impetus that she's bringing with, let's say, the Green New Deal and these student loan issues and what I think it's called basic income and these other issues, that just maybe she will activate, along with the programs that you guys are running, more voters? Young voters?
So I think she does a great job of connecting issues for voters so that they feel that she actually is representative for them. So we support all political parties. We're nonpartisan. But one thing that I do think what she represents for young people, and one reason she is mobilizing them, is that I think they're seeing that I can turn 29, 30 and run, like they see themselves.
Right,
and I think that's really important.
So you think that they actually see themselves as being able to participate, not only as a person voting, but somebody who people will vote for?
Yes, we actually had, so there's about 120 ambassadors at the colleges that we work with in total, and we actually had one student who ran for city council.
Wow.
And he lost, but he had, I think it was like he lost by like 10% of the votes or something like that.
Right.
So we're seeing more and more young people running for office, and I think that's really important because a lot of the laws that are being passed now are laws that are going to affect the young generation.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
So, for example, with the Green New Deal, when we're talking about climate change, the people that we have in office right now, those aren't issues that are going to affect their livelihood because you're older.
They're older. They'll be dead by then.
Yes. So
I know you don't want to say it quite well, but yeah, baby boomers, you're gonna be dead.
Yes.
So you think any other things in particular to the Green New Deal that you think really have the mojo for the youth, or?
So I think another part of that is, for example, getting money out of politics.
Oh, yes.
That I think is really, really important because just with conversations that I've had with ambassadors or with other young people, everyone thinks that elections are rigged.
Right.
Everyone thinks that politicians are all paid off. So I think having those conversations will be really important, especially for young people.
Well, that's good. I want to thank you, Mr. Kevin Hurtado, for the work that you're doing.
You.
And actually, because we need a lot of having older people try to promote things is good. but having younger people try to promote it to the people they represent, I think it's important. So thank you very much for what you're doing,
so
sir.
much.
Okay?
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoyed Senor Hurtado. Now we have I really enjoyed this particular interview with Afia. She is a lawyer. Check out what she has to say. Welcome to another edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis. I'm here with Afia Yunus and at the Bridge Alliance Conference. We sat at the table together, and one of the most prescient statements that we had came from her, an immigrant from another. Well, I think were you born here or? I was born here, yeah. Yeah, from a young woman from immigrant families. Her perspective, I thought, was most important. Afia Yunus, so nice to see you. Welcome aboard. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the statement you made on our table during our little discussion about coming here and not realizing that you just may have been part of the problem as well.
The thing I find interesting is a lot of immigrants and children of immigrants tend to remove themselves from the systemic institutionalized racism that exists in this country.
Right.
And what I found is it's important for us to realize that even by the nature of us being here, we are recipients of the privilege that came from being non-Black.
Right.
And so just recognizing that we're part of that system,
right.
we operate within that system, and we receive benefits from that system is very important.
And you said it's very important. Why is it important? I mean, saying it's very important is one thing. Mm-hmm. Explaining the rationale, because what you find is a lot of times you are used as the excuse for hurting somebody else, even if they think they're not. So explain.
Well, step one is awareness.
Right.
And I believe in a specific type of model in becoming an agent of change.
Mm-hmm.
Step one is awareness,
right.
which then creates empathy,
mm-hmm.
which then creates the humility necessary to actually become an agent of change. You're part of the problem
right.
if you don't realize what role you play in this society. That's what will create the spark to actually do something about it. You know, we're at a table, and you know, a lot of people say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think if I'm a person of privilege,
mm-hmm.
right, and I recognize that, then and only then will I be willing to pull up a chair for someone else.
Now, when I was given my narrative, there's a word that I use and that you took exception to. Help.
Yeah.
Explain, first of all, what was it in the way that it was used that needs to be corrected?
Yeah, it's, you know, I've heard this term help a lot, you know, on the progressive left side and on the conservative right. To me, the word help implies that I have and you have not.
Mm-hmm.
And that I have come to be your savior
mm-hmm.
and give you what you don't have. And I'd like to shift that to now using the word service and serve. Because what that implies is we can mutually benefit each other. And we both have resources that we can bring to the table. And let's move away from I have this and I'm going to give it to you, and instead say I'm going to serve you and our common cause, because we both have resources and assets.
You know, I've been, you know, when I talk about, you know, I think folks need to do things that help. I never took it that way. And after you said that, I thought back and I said, you know what? That is absolutely true. That is actually disempowering to some. Mm-hmm. If you look at it deep inside, if I have to require your help, it is ironic that that's how I expressed it, because generally in my narrative it is about not asking but taking what's yours. That has always been my narrative on politics done right. We don't ask for somebody to give us our freedom. We don't ask for anybody to do those things. But at the same time, when we spoke, I used the word help as if, you know, so I accept that as it's something that we have to work on in language because actually it permutes itself into something else.
Yeah, and it can, just like you said, it can be disempowering to the people that we're trying to serve.
Right.
And what brought me here today is that I'm on the board of the One America movement, and we're an organization that really lives by that principle that when we try to serve, when we create projects of bringing different multi-faith groups together, the first thing we do is ask the community, like, how can we serve? You know, how can we help each other? What resources do you have? What resources do we have? And let's uplift and empower each other.
Now, the Bridge Alliance, when you decided to come here, what do you want to leave with? There's a reason you came. What do you want to leave with?
I think for me, it's more about, we have all of these organizations and groups that are doing great work, but unfortunately, most of us are not working together. So I feel like organizations like this, I mean, this is my first time here, can help facilitate bringing these organizations together, aligned on common goals, to have a greater impact.
You said that is why you came here. I want to just give some kudos to a lot of the new people that I've seen come into these, not only to the Bridge Alliance, which was for the last time very white, not only Netroots Nation, another organization I work with that was very white. For us to look like America, we have to be intentional. For us to be intentional, it means people like you have to participate. So I think it's a good thing that that we are bringing just about everybody into the fold now in these progressive movements. So Afia, Eunice, thank you so kindly
so much.
for the
It's such a
interview.
pleasure.
You're doing excellent work and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, this particular interview now, let's see, get that there. Welcome to another edition of Politics. This other interview now, it's with a young lady called Brielle Ringer. I mean, she has a way of describing activism that I found empowering, but not only empowering, but check this out. You're going to see what I'm talking about. Welcome to Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis. Folks, I am the Bridge Alliance conference right now. And I can tell you that we are just blessed with having a lot of very smart, young activists who are making a difference. And I think it is important for us to highlight these people specifically because not we want to highlight them, but because we so need them. And today I'm honored to have Brielle Ringer with Living Room Conversations. How are you doing, Brielle?
I'm doing lovely, thank you.
Look, first of all, what brought you to the Bridge Alliance conference?
Yeah, so I work with Living Room Conversations using social media for social change and to grow our movement online and for more people to be engaging with the conversations that we are having around a variety of topics and social issues and really bringing people together to bridge divides through conversation.
Now, you say conversations,
Yes.
Conversations. I love the word. I mean, how do we start to get people to stop the bickering and stop the fighting and just say, let's talk?
Yeah, so what we do...
How did you do it?
Yeah, so the important thing is we have a grounding set of principles and rules that everyone agrees to in the start of a conversation. And so everyone starting off and going into it, they know that they're coming in to have a respectful conversation where we're not going to, say you're wrong,
right.
That's not right, but we're really focused on like, what's your experience with this issue? Not like, what's your political opinion and all of those things, but like, what's your personal experience with this issue?
And have you found it to be rewarding, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely, to feel engaged in something that matters, something that's driving forward change.
Okay, so that we can show people that this is something that is on all of us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay. So I came to this work by being interested in social change and using social media to drive that forward. Outside of what I do with Living Room Conversations, I'm really curious about this idea of pleasure activism, which
Explain that.
Yeah, so it's really about our role as activists and artists is to make social change the most irresistible thing, to make it irresistible to want to drive forward change and to be engaged in movement work.
I love that. Tell me the word again.
Pleasure activism.
Pleasure activism.
Yes.
I mean, if you have pleasure, if you're having pleasure doing something,
Yes.
you want to do it again.
Exactly, and it's really, I really connected with Debbie Lynn shared when she was on the stage right before we went to break about like, we're doing this work because we enjoy it, because we want to be together, because it's fun and it's enjoyable, and we're having it be playful in the way that we're creating and co-creating change and shaping change together. Like, it has to be fun, it has to be enjoyable, and that's actually what makes our movement sustainable, is for us to have play, pleasure, all of that engage in the social change, in the movements that we're creating. Like, we want to enjoy doing the work that we're doing, and so making that a part of everything that we're building and creating. Like, and that was something that I shared too about the importance of focusing on what we are stand for rather than what we stand against.
You went ahead of me right there. One of the reasons that you are here is I was in the ballroom and you stood up, and you, actually I've got to tell you, it was more a learning experience for me, your statement.
Yeah.
Because in as much as I felt it and believed it, what was important about it is many times in my narrative, and by the way, people change my narrative all of the time.
Yeah.
On the radio, I listen to what people have to say. And I can tell you that you have changed my narrative. Focus absolutely more. I tell you what, before we go,
Yeah.
tell us what you stood up and said, and then I'll put my little post-amble onto it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about the importance of us in this movement as seeing our power and our role as co-creators shaping change. And in that, what we pay attention to grows. So if all we're focused on is the heaviness and like everything that's wrong and everything that we need to like do away with and destroy and dismantle, it's like, okay, well then what's left? What's left after that? Like, what are we creating to take its place? What do we want to create together? What do we want to dream and visualize and really have take place for the sustainability of our movements and to pass on a society of justice, equity, sustainability to the next generation?
And I'm going to cop to being the person that every day on my radio show, I try to empower people, but in doing so, I think I depress many times because I haven't necessarily followed that rule.
Yeah.
And while you were talking, I'm going to tell you what hit me. I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
When you were talking, I'm sitting down there and I'm going through every politics done right that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I do it daily. So I've have hundreds of them. And I'm thinking about, listen to what this young woman is saying. Listen to what appeals to her. And listen to what she's just said about pleasure activism. Who wants every day to be? And I'm like, I think I have to find a way to tweak my show into what you've just said.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. I love that. It's about what we're creating together.
Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Brielle Ringer, it was my pleasure to have you on
such a
board.
pleasure.
And not only that, please keep doing what you're doing, and please keep talking, because your words change people. Your words change people, and your words have changed politics done right.
I can't wait to tune in.
All right. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis. We are blessed to have people from several organizations here at the Bridge Alliance. Today I'm here with Ellen Morehouse.
Hello.
Ellen, how are you doing?
I'm very well, and how
Great.
are you?
I am doing fine. Ellen, you're with Represent Us. I want you to tell me what was the major issue that brought you to this conference?
So Represent Us is all about working together across the aisle, exactly what you've just said.
Right.
So we're sort of committed to bringing principles of reform, state by state, local ways of fighting to a national level.
Right. Now, tell me what have you accomplished thus far?
So 2018 was actually an incrable year, historic wave of reform in the midterm elections. 23 states passed local anti-corruption laws in cities and states across the U.S. So the issues range the gamut from anti-gerrymandering reform to ranked choice voting to campaign finance reform, ethics and transparency, sort of what we think is more wonky political reform issues that are actually really changing the structure of how we vote and then subsequently how politicians govern once they get there.
Have you found that, first of all, Represent Us, I think, would be considered a a transpartisan or nonpartisan organization. Is that correct?
Correct. We sometimes use the word cross-partisan,
Right.
post-partisan. We're sort of trying to build the bigger tent to bring both together.
And how have you found working with, let's say, progressive organizations and conservative organizations? Have they been equally receptive, or do you have more work to do with one? Tell me about that.
There's always more work to be done. And in fact, here today at the conference, I learned, if we even think back to our history, there were states that didn't even originally ratify our Constitution, right? We had civil war 70 years later. So always work to be done to bring together parties for a common issue. But I find, especially for our organization, that we're actually talking about the same issues, right? So sort of leaving aside a particular party, if you actually believe in Drain the Swamp, right, and that message resonated with millions, we're talking about the same issues here.
I am so happy you brought that up, because in effect, when you talk about let's drain the swamp, you are really talking about that's a nonpartisan
fighting corruption,
issue. Yes.
money in politics, and these issues resonated deeply with the right and the left, quite frankly. So if we're actually talking about the same issues, what I would label as corruption, right, the corrupting influence of money in politics, who a politician listens to once they get in office, it's not likely going to be incentivized to be their constituent, the person who needs their pothole fixed. It's going to be the person who's giving $1,000, $5,000 checks to sort of assuage them to vote on a particular issue that they'd like, whether or not the American people benefit.
Right, absolutely. So have you found yourself very easy working with these organizations, or?
Yeah, it's certainly across the aisle, and especially in different states, finding these unlikely allies has just become so crucial to the goal that you almost can't do without it.
Right.
You can't go in and say you're a nonpartisan or cross-partisan organization if you don't make that authentic effort to actually try to listen across the aisle, and sort of more than just the broken two-party duopoly. Like, what are the independents and moderates thinking? What are the fringe candidates thinking? How could you begin to build towards something that could actually benefit the whole?
Now let's talk about you, because first of all, I've always been impressed with people who otherwise could be doing a lot more lucrative things, a lot of other things in life.
And you too, I'm sure, sir.
We all can. But you decided that this is something that you wanted to do. Why?
I think this is a really pivotal time in our life. As a millennial, as a young woman, I really feel compelled to act in a way that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to participate in. And so when people say, millennials are apathetic, they don't care about the future, they don't participate.
Stop. Tell me a little bit about that, because I've been working with a lot of millennials in Houston.
That's what I'm saying. It's not true. It's a stereotype.
And what I've seen is, in fact, I work a lot with a group called Indivisible Houston, which is run by a millennial. Yes. And I am like the elder statesman, and I tell them, I listen to what they want me to do, because I understand that they are the ones, you guys are the ones who we're leaving this to.
That's right.
So ultimately, we've done our part, which hadn't been all that good. It's on you. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I think there's room for everything.
Right.
We need the guidance and advice and wisdom of our elders. We need the sort of breath of fresh air and activism and spurts of youth and energy from our younger folks, and even younger than I now.
Right.
So I think that without that balance, which can also relate to party, also relate to age and gender and diversity and religion, without the balance of the melting pot that makes America so great, what are we really fighting for anyways?
Ellen Morehouse, you are going to make America great again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time.
so kindly. Well, I did my timing a little bit off, because right now it seems like the last interview is 11 minutes and we only have about 2 minutes left, so I can't quite get there. But here, folks, first of all, I want to thank you guys for being here with us, for listening to these great millennials who had a whole lot to say. I want to remind you all that this is a progressive show that does need your support. Please remember to go to politicsdoneright.com, become a member, become a subscriber. And, we do a whole lot of things. We don't only stay here in the office. We're out there in the fields. We're out there everywhere as we have to get our message out, as we make sure that things are going to get changed. I know you know what time it is right now for us to just go ahead and me give you the thank you and the hope for thank you later on. Here we go. Patrons and prospective patrons, thank you for your support of independent media. Why is it crucial? We are not dependent on the whims of those who advertise on the platforms we use to bring you news, truths, opinions, and empowerment. We ensure that all of those who must have a voice, whose voices have been silenced or ignored, are heard. Those who have messages and narratives to better us all have a place and an outlet to do so. With all the misinformation out there, our platforms give you power. You are integrated into a network where no one has a monopoly of ideas. Remember, Politics Done Right is yours, and you can be a part on the scene or behind the scenes. Thank you for supporting Politics Done Right and our corresponding websites, newsletters, and outlets. Thank you. Okay, folks, don't forget, go to politicsdoneright.com or go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. By the way, folks, if you go to store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com, with all the impeachment talk, how do you like that? Designed by Politics Done Right and prepared by an expert designer, expert drawer, drafter, or artist. Nancy Pelosi, please don't impeach me. It's a nice t-shirt. Go to store.politicsdoneright.com. Store.politicsdoneright.com. Support the movement by supporting us with the little goodies that we have, or by becoming a subscriber. Our subscriptions are very, very cheap. But that is how we are going to be able to continue doing what we're doing. Please check us out. Please stay with us. Please share us. Please make sure people see this all over. And remember, if you just go to our page on Facebook, which is Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies, our page on YouTube, which is youtube.com/Egberto Willies, or our Twitter, Tumblr, we're everywhere. So check us out. Thank you so kindly for spending this time with us. We do know this is your time. We do appreciate you fully. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!